October 28, 1969, Hill 936 in the Central Highlands. For 5 days, thousands of North Vietnamese soldiers would surround a small American firebase perched on this remote hilltop. But this wasn't about Firebase Kate. This was about testing whether America's newest strategy, Vietnamization, was a lie. This was about proving to the world that Saigon couldn't stand on its own. And the men ordered to prove it? Teenagers from Hanoi and Ha Tin, many of them sick with malaria, all of them exhausted. This is their story. By late 1969, North Vietnam was operating under a new reality. Ho Chi Minh had died on September 2nd, just 2 months before Firebase Kate. Le Duan now controlled the Politburo in Hanoi, and Le Duan had a problem. In Washington, Richard Nixon had just announced something he called the Nixon Doctrine. The Americans were leaving. First wave of 25,000 troops pulled out in June. Second wave of 35,000 more in September. Nixon called it Vietnamization. The idea was simple: train the South Vietnamese army to fight their own war, then leave them to do it. But there was a catch. If Vietnamization worked, if the ARVN could actually hold without American support, then Hanoi's path to reunification would take decades longer. Le Duan issued what Vietnamese military records call COSVN Resolution 9 in July 1969. The directive was clear: apply high points of military pressure while preserving main forces, force the Americans to withdraw before Vietnamization could succeed. The place chosen for this test? The southern Central Highlands, specifically the outer defensive ring around Buon Ma Thuot. Bu Prang and Duc Lap were special forces camps that guarded the approaches to the city. Vietnamese military planners called them the outer hard shell. 6 new American fire bases had just been built around these camps. Firebase Kate was one of them. Built in mid-September, barely 6 weeks old when the attack came. The Vietnamese command saw something the Americans didn't. Kate's fortifications weren't finished. The bunkers were incomplete. The wire perimeter had gaps. The base sat just 6 kilometers from the Cambodia border with incomplete defenses, 150 defenders, and no idea what was coming. To Hanoi, this was an invitation. The operation fell to the B-3 front under Lieutenant General Hoang Minh Thao, a veteran of Dien Bien Phu, who'd besieged the French at Hong Kong position in 1954. Thao had a specific tactical doctrine. In Vietnamese, it's called Vai Diem Diet Vien. Surround the strong point, destroy the relief column. Thao assigned the 66th Infantry Regiment to lead the assault, the Don Play Me, the Plime Group. These weren't fresh troops. The 66th had fought at Ia Drang in 1965, at Dak To in 1967. They'd just been bloodied again at Dak To 2 in summer 1969. Many of them had just come out of Cambodian base area 740, where they'd been refitting. They were teenagers mostly, from Hanoi, from Ha Tin, from Nguyen An, and by late October, after the monsoon season, many were sick. The 66th Regiment didn't walk to Firebase Kate. They were delivered. Group 559 under Lieutenant General Dong Sin Nguyen had transformed the Ho Chi Minh Trail from jungle footpath into what Vietnamese military historians call a modern, strategic, overt battlefield. By 1969, the trail was moving troops and supplies by truck. 20,000 personnel operating 10,000 vehicles. Way stations every 15 kilometers. Integrated communications. Hardened positions against American bombing. From these Cambodian sanctuaries, Vietnamese forces could strike into South Vietnam and retreat across a border that American ground forces couldn't legally cross. Firebase. Kate sat 6 kilometers from that border, close enough that North Vietnamese artillery could fire from Cambodian positions without fear of counter-battery fire from American guns. The buildup for Kate began in mid-October. The 66th Regiment, supported by the 28th and 32nd Regiments, total strength somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 troops in the Bu Prang Duc Lap area. But getting to Hill 936 meant a march through some of the worst terrain in Southeast Asia. Elephant grass tall enough to hide a standing man, triple canopy jungle blocking out the sun, red mud that stuck to everything. And the conditions? Bảo Ninh was a soldier in the 27th Youth Brigade fighting in these same highlands during the same dry season of 1969, roughly 50 kilometers from Firebase Kate. Of the 500 men in his brigade who marched south, only 10 would survive the war. His novel, The Sorrow of War, is the most authenticated Vietnamese account of what these soldiers endured. He describes the bodies they brought to battle this way. Successive bouts of malaria left troops anemic, their bodies breaking out in ulcers showing through worn and torn clothing. They looked like lepers, he wrote, not heroic scouts. Faces moss-grown and sorrowful, without hope. These were the men creeping through the jungle toward Hill 936 in late October. Malarial, underweight, carrying B-40 rockets, 82mm mortars, recoilless rifles. The first phase of the campaign was deception. Vietnamese forces launched attacks on Kon Tum, Pleiku, Buon Ma Thuot, and Phu Bon to mask where the main blow was falling. By October 25th, when Firebase Helen, 6 kilometers away, came under fire, the deception was working. The Americans at Kate didn't realize a regiment was already in position around their hill. The encirclement was nearly complete. October 28, 1969, night patrol from Firebase Kate. A Montagnard ambush patrol bumped into a large force on what the Americans called Ambush Hill. First contact. By dawn on October 30th, the 66th Regiment's encirclement was complete. Vietnamese military records describe the method coolly. The main force of Regiment 66 utilized advantageous terrain to establish strong fighting positions around the Kate strongpoint. Battalions 7 and 8 lay in wait not for Firebase Kate, but for the relief force. This was the doctrine. Ve diem diet vien. The Firebase was bait. The real target was whoever came to save it. 2 ARVN airborne commando battalions flew in on October 30th. Vietnamese records claim they fell upon and were wiped out. American records confirm heavy casualties, but dispute the wiped-out claim. What's not disputed is that the relief effort failed.
We now had somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 NVA surrounding us, and I had about 165 men, 170 men. Things are not looking good for the home team. We started calling in airstrikes and those helicopter gunships. They'd come in and they were incredible, absolutely incredible. They would come in hot and fast, and they'd have rockets. They had miniguns, and they had their M60 machine guns. And when the NVA came at us with these massive attack, hundreds came out of that wood line to attack us and overrun us. They beat them back. Of course, we were firing from our new deeper overhead cover defensive positions that they had. They seemed to appear overnight. And then when they were off station, then the jets would come in, the fast movers would come in. And they'd bomb the piss out of them, and napalm and bombs. And I'm constantly calling in airstrike after airstrike. And during the lull period, well, they would ground attack us again, but we managed to hang on.
Inside the wire at Kate, the systematic bombardment had begun. 75mm and 57mm recoilless rifles pounded the hillside. B-40 and B-41 rockets screamed in. 60mm and 82mm mortars walked across the defensive positions. The heaviest fire came from across the border. The 40th Artillery Regiment firing from Cambodian sanctuary. 85mm field guns, 105mm howitzers, 130mm field guns lobbing airburst shells that the Americans couldn't initially counter because they originated outside South Vietnam. Vietnamese anti-aircraft positions controlled the airspace. 12.7mm heavy machine guns and 37mm guns created a deadly umbrella over the hill. Daylight helicopter resupply became suicide. By October 31st, both of Kate's 155mm howitzers were knocked out. The replacement 105mm gun followed soon after. Vietnamese military journals record it this way: anti-aircraft guns controlled the airspace, cutting off enemy aerial supply route and water sources. Vietnamese claims state nearly 200 enemy eliminated and 14 aircraft shot down. American records tell a different story. Verified American dead at Firebase Kate, 6 men, 1 lieutenant from the artillery battalion. A 4-man helicopter crew shot down on October 30th. 1 private lost during the night breakout and never recovered. The aircraft claims are closer to reality. Helicopter gunships, forward air controllers, and at least 1 fixed-wing platform took heavy fire across 5 days. But what mattered to the Vietnamese soldiers on the hillside wasn't body counts. It was staying alive. Bảo Ninh describes what happened when American air power found Vietnamese positions in the Highlands. That was the dry season, when the sun burned harshly, the wind blew fiercely, and the enemy sent napalm spraying through the jungle. A sea of fire enveloped them, spreading like the fires of hell. B-52. Arc light strikes hit NVA positions around Kate on October 31st. Each strike dropping over 100 bombs across a box pattern 2 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. The ground shook like an earthquake, trees vaporized. Anyone caught in the open ceased to exist. Whatever the victory claims in Hanoi, the men in the trenches around Hill 936 were dying. November 1st, 1969, just after midnight. Inside Firebase Kate, 150 men prepared to do something no one thought possible. They were going to walk out. The Vietnamese had emplaced a 51 caliber heavy machine gun directly on the planned escape route. American Signals Intelligence had intercepted a radio order that morning for a final overrunning attack. The 66th Regiment had spent 5 days ensuring nothing could escape Hill 936. But a Montagnard pointman improvised a different path, and 150 starving men walked 3 hours through enemy lines in pitch dark. The Vietnamese record makes no mention of the breakout. This is the gap in the official history, the absence that reveals as much as the presence. By noon on November 2nd, the remaining defenders had linked with Mike Force companies inserted a kilometer northwest and reached Bu Prang. Firebase Kate was empty. F-4 Phantom jets bombed it into rubble later that day to deny the position to Vietnamese forces. Tactically, the 66th Regiment had achieved its objective. The firebase fell. The relief column was ambushed. A RVN failed to break the siege. The Bu Prang siege continued until December 16th when ARVN's 23rd Division finally broke through. But by then, the point was made. Exactly 2 days after Firebase Kate was abandoned, Richard Nixon delivered his silent majority speech from the White House on November 3, 1969. The timing wasn't coincidence. Firebase Kate's evacuation lined up with the deadline of Nixon's secret July ultimatum to Hanoi. The campaign was Hanoi's answer to that ultimatum, but the story doesn't end in 1969. March 10, 1975, same B-3 front, same commander, Hoang Minh Thao, same 66th Regiment. They would use the same Vi Diem Diet Vien tactic to shatter Buon Ma Thuot, surround the city, destroy the relief forces, take the prize. And from there, the road to Saigon was open. On April 30th, 1975, Veterans of the 66th Regiment, like Pham Duan, that took the surrender at the Independence Palace in Saigon, the line from Hill 936 to the palace gates is real. Vietnamese military history draws it explicitly. Firebase, Kate to Saigon, same tactics, same units, 6 years apart. For the soldiers of the 66th who climbed Hill 936 in October 1969, most didn't live to see that final victory. What can be said with certainty is this: they walked into napalm with malaria in their blood. They dug trenches on a hostile hillside, while B-52s turned the jungle around them into fire. They were certain they were winning a war whose real verdict was still 6 years away. Kate fell, the relief failed, the doctrine worked. The absence in the Vietnamese record, the silence about 150 men walking through their lines, is its own kind of answer. In memory of all soldiers who fought at Firebase Kate, October 28th through November 1st, 1969.